Well, after a few days of intense heat here in Britain, we finally have some relief in coldness in the form of showers and rain. So it's a bit misty and murky today, but I think we all wanted it. So here we are again, time this weekend for my latest album review. And this week I'm looking at Abba, The Visitors from 1981. And this was Abba's eighth and final studio album. And as you can see, it looks a bit more ominous, doesn't it? Because Abba's always been known for their lighter pop in production, but this is already given something sort of the ominous tone of what to expect. They're actually all pictured here in what is Julius Kronberg's studio, and he was a 19th century painter. His studio was rebuilt in Stockholm in Sweden. And we've got lots of his pictures behind them, including this really big one of Eros, who is the god of love and sex. And on the back, we again have lots of pictures, including the front cover in miniature and the miniature of Eros again. And lots of the other ones. I think they're all by Julius Kronberg. So this album represented a lot of firsts for Abba. This was one of the first albums ever to be recorded and mixed digitally. I think Polar Records, they'd recorded the first few tracks on analog tape, and then they got this new equipment in. So then the rest of the tracks were recorded digitally. But then what they had to do was then transfer it back to analog tape to get it sounding the same. And it's interesting because they described it sounding really clean, even at that stage. Now, a lot of people mightn't appreciate the differences between recording on digital and analog technology, but there is the sort of aesthetic differences. The sound sounds different, and there's always that, connotation of analog sounding warm and digital sounding really clean. And that was certainly something they found, and they had to adapt the production and recording methods for working on The Visitors. And a lot of the themes on this album with the songs, some represent more political themes to do with the Cold War. Obviously, that was a big issue in the 1980s. Some of them represent regret and romantic dreams, which again, kind of signifies the relationships moving apart and moving on. And it's a very intriguing. It's definitely got a darker tone. Now, what comes in this album is this. This is the dust cover, and it's got all the lyrics on, which is very helpful. And it starts off with a very futuristic kind of ominous opening. The production on this first track, the title track, The Visitors, is very different. It opens with these really intriguing synthesizers. And the lead vocal, Frieda's lead vocal, is very distinctive in this mix. And again, it talks about these unidentified visitors coming and a panic taking the narrator, saying they've been expecting these visitors, but they're unwelcome. And it's a very dark tone to set the album, but it's such a great track. It was always my favourite growing up. I had this track on a compilation CD of Abba, and it was always one of my favourites, along with Eagle, which is from Abba the album. And it slowly builds in texture to this really big chorus, with this wonderful instrumental afterwards. and it's just such a great energy to bring out to start this album. But it really sets a tone, and it's completely different to any of the other songs, in my opinion, that ABBA worked on. This is definitely, production-wise, very different, very intriguing. Then we go on to Head Over Heels, which is a really sort of fun song. I really like the pop video of this, where it shows Frida sort of running around the streets, and it's just sort of the second, it's sort of a person saying, well, I've got this friend. It's not about me, and it's about a friend of mine, and she's like this. And again, that's quite an unusual perspective. There's not a lot of songs that do that. And again, what I love about ABBA is that they're always so good with lyrics and rhyming schemes. I love the part that goes into the chorus, the lead up. You hear her voice everywhere, taking the chair. She's the leading lady, and with no trace of hesitation, she keeps going, head over heels, breaking away, pushing through unknown jungles every day. She's the girl with a taste for the world. And it's such a you know, it's such a sort of comical song, but very kind of believable as well. Even though it's minor all the way through, you don't really expect it to end on such a serious note. It's quite unexpected, in my opinion. The next track, When All Is Said Is Done, is again a one that I'm familiar with, and the tone of this is very optimistic. It's kind of saying, even though it's a really nice tone that you get a lot with relationship kind of songs, that kind of, oh, well, it was all your fault. You're to blame for everything. It was all on you. It wasn't all, it was me. It was me. Or, you know, it's never, I haven't come across many songs where it's like, well, it wasn't neither of us. It's just how it is. And that's the kind of tone that's set with When All Is Said Is Undone. And it starts off with, here's to us, one last toast, and then we'll pay the bill. And it has that kind of tone of like, well, we've gone through so much together, and neither you nor I'm to blame when all is said and done. And, you know, it's kind of it's sort of a halfway point, and it recognises that in the song with the kind of upbeat major tone, and I really love it. It's a great song, and it features in, of course, the jukebox musical Mamma Mia. And then side A finishes with the song Soldiers, which again, kind of similar to The Visitors, has that kind of undertone of the Cold War. And, you know, again, it's kind of enigmatic, but it opens up with with this military beat of doof, 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 doof. And when I first heard this album in full, I hadn't heard this song before. And, you know, I think a lot of people probably haven't heard this song who haven't heard this album in particular. And it's got such an interesting feel to it, with these interesting chord progressions that the verses in a minor tone, minor tonality, that then go to an interesting major tonality for the choruses. That with the words, soldiers write the songs, that soldiers sing the songs that you and I don't sing. And it doesn't really explain itself what it exactly means. It leaves it up for interpretation, but it does leave a lot of food for thought. And I think definitely the catching line in this in the chorus is, let's not look the other way, taking a chance, because if the bugler starts to play, we too must dance. An interesting lyric. So that's how side A finishes, and that fades out on a major tonality, unlike Head Over Heels. So there's some really interesting endings of songs here. They seem to end them in an interesting way to what you expect. Going on to side B, first of all, excuse me, it first begins with I Let the Music Speak, which is a very romantic sort of piano-based song, and it really is such a huge song, really. It's very classical in nature. It's quite unexpected. And it really goes through all these lyrics right till the end, where it has the title of the song right at the end. And I love some of these lyrics. I'm hearing images, I'm seeing songs. Again, the juxtapositions of words here. No poet has ever painted. Voices call out to me, straight to my heart. So strange, yet we're so well acquainted. I let the music speak with no restraint. I let my feelings take over. Carry my soul away into the world where beauty meets the darkness of day. It's very poetic, it's very romantic, and that's reflected in the music. It's very operatic, I was thinking you could sing this at a concert, and people, if you did this with just, as a kind of classical aria, people wouldn't know this was Abba. It's so different from any other disco-based stuff. It's brilliant. Again, it's something that's completely different on this album. And then we get One of Us, which is an interesting song. This featured on Mamma Mia 2, and I'm very glad it did. It opens up with this kind of Italianesque sort of feeling with those mandolins. And it's full of deep regret and sorrow. And it sort of tells a story of a woman who's split up with someone, and they're blaming themselves, like it was all on me. So whereas before with When All Is Said and Done, where it's like it's neither you or me, on this one it's all on me, and I want to make it right because it's really difficult. And, these lyrics of one of us is crying, one of us is lying in her lonely bed, staring at the ceiling, wishing she was somewhere else instead. And the heartbreaking lyrics, and the pop video shows Agnetha moving into a flat and decorating the walls and putting books on a bookshelf, and then the different ABBA members singing towards the mirror, from what I remember. And it's very poetic. And again, all these kind of songs about breakups, again, mirrored what the members themselves were going through personally. It's a very sad song. And then we get the kind of another kind of romantic wishing song, Two for the Price of One, but it's definitely got a comical nature about it and quite witty. It's almost like a ballad, and it's sung by Bjorn, and there's usually at least one song, it seems, on every album that's sung by Bjorn. This one, and this one, Two for the Price of One, has got a kind of it's a ballad, it's a story, and I love the lyrics in this. It's about a man, a caretaker, who reads an advert, and that's what the chorus is this what the advert said. If you dream of the girl for you, then call us and get two for the price of one. We're the answer if you feel blue. So call us and get two for the price of one. And it goes on, and he phones this number, and then it turns out that it's this girl, and it turns out the other woman is her mum, and it ends with this really over the top ending, this really comical ending, that's kind of circusy, a little bit similar to the tones found on Super Trooper, very circusy, and it's kind of very comical. So again, another interesting song that's again completely different. And then the penultimate track, Slipping Through My Fingers, again a very slow sort of ballad, and this was again featured on Mamma Mia. And again, it's kind of wishing for there's a lot of wishing on this album, isn't there? Wishing for wishing for romance on Two for the Price of One, wishing for a relationship to be fixed on One of Us. A lot of wishing, and this is again reflected in Slipping Through My Fingers, and it's a mother wishing that her daughter wouldn't grow old, and it's really kind of heartbreaking. Again, school bag in hand, she leaves home in the early morning, waving goodbye with an absent-minded smile. I watch her go with a surge of that well-known sadness. I have to sit down for a while, that feeling that I'm losing her forever, and without really entering her world. I'm glad whenever I can share her laughter, that funny little girl. And it's just such a heartbreaking, they're really heartbreaking, and it's kind of like wanting to pause time because it's going too quickly. Again, it's sort of, kind of regretting that she hasn't fulfilled everything that she wanted to do with her daughter when she was young. Kind of going, what happened to those wonderful adventures, the places I had planned for us to go? Well, some of that we did, but most of it we didn't. And why? I just don't know. And it's just, and it reprises right at the end, and this is a heartbreaking bit. It reprises the first half of the first verse. Sometimes I wish, school bag in hand, she leaves home in the early morning, waving goodbye with an absent-minded smile. And it ends just like that, and it's so heartbreaking, and I think it was a wonderful choice to have on Mamma Mia, where the mum, Meryl Streep, is reflecting that her daughter Sophie is getting married, and she's never going to see her, go off to school again, and she's slipping through her fingers. So I'm so glad that they used that on the movie, because it really fitted in well with the storyline. And then the final track is a lullaby of such, like an angel passing through my room, and again fits in through with that idea of wishing for romance, and wishing for past romance as well. And there's a lot of wishing again in this album. It's fairly simplistic and a nice way to finish the album, and the song starts and finish with ticking of an alarm clock or something, like time passing by. And time again is a very important element of what's happened in the past, what's happening now, and this is again, it's, half awake and half in dreams, seeing long forgotten scenes, so the present runs into the past, now and then becomes entwined, playing games within my mind. Like the embers as they die, love was one prolonged goodbye, and it all comes back to me tonight in the gloom, like an angel passing through my room. And again, it kind of sums up the major themes in this album, and it's a kind of great way to finish, because it kind of rests it and kind of gives it a final resting point for the album, but also kind of sums up that, all this album is kind of wishing for more and wishing for peace, but never quite finding it. It also signified the band going for a much darker tone, and it really works, and it really has a different tone to the other material. And as well as the themes of the Cold War, that also, then and beyond, or moving on from this album, that then got put into their concept album and then musical Chess, which is about a chess tournament played between an American and Russian chess players, and it's a really interesting musical, and one of the best known musicals in Britain. And another musical actually that I Let the Music Speak actually reminds me of is the title track to the German musical Rebecca. It really reminds me of that when listening to it. And I only found out about that musical about a few months ago. I didn't know it even existed, but it definitely reminds me of that. So definitely, if you like that song, I Let the Music Speak, look up Rebecca the Musical. It's a very interesting musical that I'm just finding out about myself now. So that was today's album, The Visitors. So, thank you so much for listening, and I'm actually going to be away for a fortnight, unfortunately. It cannot be helped, I'm going away from home. I'm actually packing right now, because I'm going to be rehearsing in Hull for Yeoman of The Guard with Hull University Gilbert and Sullivan Society, and we're going to be performing in Harrogate for the Gilbert and Sullivan International Festival. So you can see us perform on the 8th of August in the Utopian Theatre at 2:30 in the afternoon in Harrogate. So please come along. If I'll put the link below to where you can buy the tickets, and all the details are on there. And please come along. I'll be performing and it'll be really exciting. And then I'll be back after that. So that's on the 8th of August. I'll be back after that. That's on a Thursday. I'll be back home that weekend, and I'll be bringing another album review to you. And that week, in a fortnight, I'll be looking at this, Wind and Wuthering by Genesis. Exciting. Very Bronte-esque. So I'll be delving into that in 2 weeks' time. Until then, have a brilliant fortnight, or 2 weeks. A fortnight is 2 weeks if you don't know what that is. Some people might not know what a fortnight is. It's basically 2 weeks. And yeah, have a brilliant one. And if you're around Harrogate, please come and see me and all my friends perform in Yeoman of the Guard. Oh well, have a brilliant one, everyone. Bye! Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed this review. And why not check out some of my other videos too?